Honestly, working was more difficult for me. When I started off, I was a different person, and now I'm a different person. And then if I share those values, it's like, my influencers or the people who follow me would also be going on this roller coaster ride that one day I'm sharing something else and the next day it's something else. So after that, just recently I decided that I'm going to keep some of my very personal beliefs about religion separate from social media. That when you are working for yourself and you don't have that deadline on your head that I have to be at the office at 9 a.m. or I have to be online at 10 a.m. for my boss's call or attendance, whatever. So it is slightly more difficult to self-regulate because you can just wake later and you have the whole day to yourself to work. So that is a struggle.
Hi everyone, welcome back to In Sync. I'm your host Anmol Irfan, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that is something that's gotten very popular with a lot of people recently. And that's only because of a few people who've taken to social media to share their experiences. And I am talking about, of course, traveling, and in particular, solo traveling. And the guest we have with us today is a brilliant guest who's had so many amazing travel experiences and has formed such a great platform to educate people, and specifically women, on the benefits and the challenges and the experiences of solo traveling. So just to introduce her really quickly, after quitting her job as a management trainee at Coca-Cola in 2022, Hamnah set out to travel the world. Channeling her experiences into vibrant travel content, she quickly made a name for herself as a travel influencer. Now, with over 50,000 cross-platform followers, she's inspiring others to find purpose and balance in their journeys. Today, you get to meet Hamnah and discover what it means to live boldly, authentically, and true to oneself. Hamnah, thank you so much for being here today and being willing to share your experiences. I'm so excited to talk to you about your travels.
Hi, Anmol. Thank you for having me. I'm actually a bit humbled that you reached out to me. And I'm glad you think that people can benefit from my experiences. And in this podcast, I just hope to really be authentic and truthful. And I hope that some of you can benefit from what I say.
I love that. And that's exactly what we plan to do with InSync. We plan to share authentic experiences and let people really understand what alternative life choices or lifestyles can look like, especially in this very sort of cookie cutter hustle culture world where, there's acceptable and there's not acceptable. And as a Desi woman traveling across the world alone, you were definitely, I would say, in the realm of quote unquote not acceptable. So Hamnah, to get started, my first question to you is, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, okay. I struggle to get out of bed a lot of days. No, I'm being authentic. I'm being truthful here. So, what gets me out of bed? Good question. Okay, so I think I like what I do. I like the work that I do, and every day when I get up, I'm my own boss. And I don't have it above my head that I have to go and work for someone else to grow their own company. It's completely up to me, like the freedom, the flexibility, what I want to do, where I want to work from. So that's very inspiring. That's on days when I'm not traveling. And on days when I am traveling, okay, those are the best days. On those days, it's the excitement of getting out of your comfort zone, going to some place new, experiencing something like completely different. So yeah, it depends on the day basically.
I love that. I love that authenticity right from the get-go. We all struggle to get out of bed in the morning a little bit, don't we? It's so easy to think that every day is going to be super motivational and super, it's going to be great. And social media sort of shows that to us as well, right? And that's something that I wanted to actually talk to you about, because as a content creator and someone who's sharing her work online and her life online, which is quite public, how do you balance your work and your content creation and what you share with your own sense of identity and make sure that you're keeping the two separate?
So that's something that very recently I've been struggling with. So when I started off, I aimed to be completely authentic. A woman that I look up to is Eva Zubek. She's very famous. I'm sure you've all heard of her. And the reason why people are drawn to her is because she's very authentic. Like, she travels to places that are not very touristy. She visits the local indigenous cultures. She does not care about touristy places. If you look at her aesthetic, she actually quit makeup recently. she completely went cold turkey and she quit makeup, and she's been very honest about how she quit shaving and stuff. She's not like your typical Instagram influencer who looks perfect for the gram, and like I wanted to have that raw sort of authenticity when I started out. But the thing is that the thing with sharing your identity is that it changes. Okay, so one day I might believe in something and a life experience changes me, and the next day I believe in something else, and this happens to us as we age, and it's a natural process that we all go through. So since when I started off, I was a different person, and now I'm a different person. And then if I share those values, it's like, my influencers or the people who follow me would also be going on this roller coaster ride, that one day I'm sharing something else and the next day it's something else. So after that, just recently I decided that I'm going to keep some of my very personal beliefs about religion separate from social media. Yeah. And the way that I've like sort of decided to do that is if it's a belief related to travel, related to adventure, related to going out there doing something. For example, one belief I hold is that women should be allowed to travel on their own. So I'll share that. But if it's something very personal, so for example, if you ask me, should like do you believe in God, or like specific things, like if I follow religion, what religion do you follow, or which sect of that specific religion do you follow? So those are things that I've decided that I'm not going to share, because those things do change over time.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting balance to strike, and I know that from most of the public figures that I've had the chance to speak to, everyone does go through the same struggle. I think starting off with how much they want to share, how much people want to see. And I think social media also has become a little bit of like this cesspool of just information and trying to get into everyone's personal lives. So it does look like a very hard balance. I'm a very like private person online, so I think it just looks very scary to me sometimes when people have very public life. But I think that you strike that balance quite well, because I really enjoy your content. And I think you really connect with your audience who are, following you for your travel, for your adventures, and it's still engaging. But I understand not wanting to put all the personal stuff out there as well, definitely.
Yeah, it's like it is difficult. I'm sure that like what I go through, and I'm like a very small creator comparatively. Like there are people with millions of followers, and their fans are obsessed with them, and they're constantly trying to get more information about them. So they definitely do have those privacy issues. So if you're a person on the internet, you have to learn these skills to be in the public eye and deal with what comes with it. Is a skill that you also have to learn. So like I'm pretty sure that what I went through like the past week, I was really considering like I have to draw a line somewhere. Everyone draws a line somewhere else, whatever they're comfortable with. Another thing that other influencers do is I feel I've tried and I've not been able to do it. People share a lot of stories, like what they eat for breakfast, they're going out with friends, in the car, getting their makeup done, just like 20 stories in a day. And that's something that I'm unable to do. Like I would rather have my apps completely blocked, just edit reel and then upload that reel. So the thing with social media is every person's formula is different, and you try something, it doesn't work out, then you change strategy, and that's just how it stays, I guess.
And in terms of sort of safeguarding yourself, does your experience on social media and protecting your mental health and your sort of mental safety and physical safety connect with maybe what you've learned regarding your travels as well? Because I'm sure safety is a big priority traveling alone as a woman.
Okay, so I have heard this advice that don't post where you are in real time, don't post your location in real time. But so far, I don't think that I've had that problem, that, I'm not afraid that if I post a story, then somebody will end up there and say hi to me, because I don't think that I have that insane reach. So for example, if I'm in some village in Chitral, I don't think that posting a story in Chitral will actually harm my safety. When it comes to mental health, I think a lot of us, like doom scrolling is something we all do. And even as an influencer, I doom scroll. I have my apps, all my social media apps blocked throughout the day, except for that hour or two where I'm uploading a reel, or I'm answering messages, or I'm replying to comments, or I'm uploading a story. So it would, like, being an influencer, the fact that I have my apps blocked 24/7 is also kind of funny. So the way I'm going about that is I'm trying to shift to long form content, because if you're editing a video for YouTube, for the majority of that editing, you will be offline and then you will upload a big project. But when it comes to like TikToks, is something you shoot on the go. So for that, you have to have your you have to be constantly using social media. And again, I get into the trap of doom scrolling, so I don't like that type of content. So yeah, I'm shifting a bit towards filmmaking.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you have that self-awareness to know what content works for your well-being and what doesn't. Because when we talk about content and public figures, for example, the conversation is always about what works for the numbers, what works for the audience. And I think sometimes even as audiences, we forget that the influencers that we're looking at are also people with very real feelings, very real mental health, and a very real sort of boundary that needs to be set, right?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is that what works for you is going to work in the long run. So the social media game, it's mostly about consistency, and you can't be consistent if you're not doing what you yourself like or what you yourself are good at. Being an influencer or in any kind of career, we like all the time, we look at other people's success and we try to model their success. Okay, they do this, so I should do that. And we start not liking who we are. But our biggest strength, and this is a lesson that I have to teach myself again and again and again, because I fall into this trap again and again, is reminding myself that I have my own strengths that I am good at. And yes, their success looks easy, and it looks easy like if I make their type of content and I can get more views that way. But at the end of the day, if I make that content, A, I probably won't be as good as it. B, it won't feel authentic, it won't be coming from me. And as long as you're copying someone else, you're not going to get that level of success, because you have to use your own creativity. This is not to say that like when you're learning, obviously we all start off by copying something or the other, but you have to understand that you have your own strengths and you have to play on those and not try to be someone else. So I think the trap is when you don't like yourself and you like someone else and you're trying to be them.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice for anyone who wants to get into the public eye. And speaking of the impact that has on you and navigating all these boundaries, where would you say that your well-being and mental health journey has been with regards to sharing parts of your life and being a public account? And how do you really make sure that your cup is full?
So yeah, that's a work in progress as well. When I started off, I had I knew that it's not going to be instant. Okay, I'm not going to so I do freelancing on the side as well. That's how I make my money. My content makes me some money here and there, but it's not full-time, and my goal is to be full-time. And I started 2 years ago, and it's been 2 years and I'm still working on that goal. It might take me maybe 2 more years until I can completely quit freelancing.
Yep.
So when you were talking about mental health and well-being, so numbers really can mess with your mind. When I started off, I didn't care about the numbers. I was focused more on creativity. I was focused more on learning, because when you're learning so many new things and when you started something new, it's so exciting that just doing it itself is so fun and exciting that you're not focused on the numbers. And then I went to Hunza and I worked there with an NGO, and that Hunza series went completely viral because this was a new concept for Pakistanis that, you can go and get a job in the villages. You don't have to work in the cities, because, we see the majority of people go from villages to cities to find work. So this was like a very new concept. So that was a really great period. And then after Hunza, after that I went to Kashmir. And then after visiting Hunza and Kashmir, I'm like, okay, enough local, let's go abroad, because I've always wanted to travel abroad. Then I went to Egypt. Now, Egypt was a difficult period for me because, first of all, the type of content that you make in your own country is very different from the content you can make abroad. Because you know so much about your own country, you've been living there for years and years. You know the conversations around it, you know the stories around it. Like for example, something very famous about Hunza is like their religion. They are Ismaili. They are not Sunni Muslim. So that's, these very insightful things, and you can play on them and make stories around them. When you go abroad, you don't know much about that country if you haven't researched. And people don't really care that much. Like being a Pakistani, if I talk about a place in Pakistan, you would care a lot more about it than if I was to talk about Egypt. It's very natural because Egypt is a foreign country for us. And most of my followers probably have not been to Egypt, so they don't really care. And then my views dropped, and I was struggling with making content because I had so many trips to go to. So the Egypt trip, although I had lots of fun and it was a crazy experience, majority of my I didn't get time to make content. In 3 months maybe I made 9 reals, which is so bad. So yeah, since I came back, I was struggling a bit, and then I sat down and I reimagined my strategy. But what I'm trying to say is that if you go into this game of like the numbers, like how many views am I getting, how many likes am I getting, how many shares am I getting, it really, really, really messes with your head. And after this experience, I realized that I had put so many eggs in one basket. Like I had become so dependent on my career for my identity that the numbers dropping really, really affected my mental health. And also I learned a lot about how to make better content in the future if I go abroad. The past week, like the week after I came back from Egypt, was really difficult. I don't want to say mental breakdown, but like was just crying every night. Found it difficult to wake up in the morning. I felt like my identity was attacked just because my content wasn't performing well. I was missing Egypt so much. I wasn't used to being back in Pakistan. And that taught me a lot of stuff about, seeing your work as work and not as your identity. So I've decided to like shift that kind of platform from being a place where I be completely 100% authentic to treating it more like work. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it definitely does, but also just I just wanted to say, sending you all the love and prayers. I know these things can be super difficult. Yeah, so just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing what you did, and of course, so many love and prayers to you, and I hope that you feel better soon. I think sharing will, of course, help so many people because, like I mentioned before as well, social media can seem so perfect, and it's so easy to see public figures as like having it all together. So it always helps when someone can share, the experiences that they're going through, or the fact that life isn't perfect, which it isn't. But going back to what you said about quitting your job and freelancing, your bio literally says you quit your job to travel the world. Was it difficult doing something so unconventional, and is there anything you do differently?
No, it felt like the easiest thing to me. Like honestly, working was more difficult for me. If I actually was going through a lot of other situations in my life at that time, which was why leaving the job was an impulsive decision, and at that point I couldn't do anything else. I was going through very shit mental health. I had actually wanted another job, which was actually in the Netherlands, in Nike, which was more of an office job. And instead, I had gotten a management trainee job at Coca-Cola in sales in Islamabad. So if anybody has been in field sales, they will understand that if you're working in sales, your job is literally to go from shop to shop to take orders of Coca-Cola on their app. And it's around from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So 6 or 7 hours in the market in the heat. Pakistan is a very hot country. It's like the work of like a delivery boy. It's very a lot of manual labor. And the job that I had wanted was like, I hadn't expected that corporate would be like this, because in university they paint a very amazing picture of how important having a corporate job is for your success, and how important it is for grooming and all the perks you will get, and you will network with all of these very successful people, and you will climb the corporate ladder, and it will be like a family, and you will be able to travel, and you'll make lots of money. And it was nothing like that. It's like you doing a delivery job. And so first of all, it was the physical labor. I was going through very shit mental health. I was in a sales office, which is literally like a distribution. So if you have ever visited a warehouse, there is no office. The only girl in the office aside from me was one other person. It was all men, and most of them were like, they were very nice to me, and they were very kind and welcoming to me, but they weren't at the same mental level, because a lot of them were FSC pass. They were just delivery boys. FSC is high school. And I learned a lot from them, and they're very beautiful people, but you need women around you, and you need people who think the same as you to some extent. So all of these factors combined, I was crying every day. I would come back from work and I would just cry, and I wouldn't be able to force myself to go to work in the morning, so I just quit. And another reason was because it was so unethical. They gave me a route in which I had to deliver some Coca-Cola bottles to a place in Islamabad, which wasn't exactly a slum, but it was like a very, very poor area. It was like a semi-slum, you could say. And I would be giving Coke waters to those shops, and little children would come to buy that Coke. They would have bare feet and dirty hair and muddy faces, and they would carry these little pennies with them, and they would just save up all their money and buy these snacks and junk food and Coke. And I used to be like, why is there no regulation on selling this to young children? Like, alcohol is, you can't sell it under 21. Tobacco, you can't sell it under 18, I think. But diabetes kills more people than cancer every year. and this coke you can sell to these young kids. So it felt so unethical. And then even like the delivery boys, they wouldn't get paid sometimes when it wasn't even their fault, and their money would be delayed. And I felt like, why are they paying me so much? And inshallah, if I ever have a company, I will make sure that the people at the lowest areas, they get paid very well, inshallah. So all of these factors, it just made complete sense to me to quit. It was easier for me because I was freelancing even while I was in university, so I always knew that I can make like just enough for me to survive through freelancing anyway. So because I had the plan B to freelance, although I don't want to freelance for the rest of my life. Some people make it their full life. I don't think it's a great life to be just freelancing for me personally. So I quit.
Yeah, it's freelancing is definitely tough. I think mentally, just having to set your own routine and discipline every day. I say this as a freelancer myself, who's always thinking about like, what is the future here?
Yeah, and it's not just about the routine. It's like the constant, you're always searching for more work, always searching for more work. And it's great if you have long-term clients, but you could lose them. And then for me, I always struggle with finding long-term clients. Like if someone finds a long-term client who pays them really well, great for them. But I'd been doing it for like, I don't know, 3-4 years, and I couldn't get only one long-term client. Otherwise, it would be maximum 4-6 months. So that pressure of continuously trying to find a new source of income was draining for me. And what type of freelancing do you do?
So I'm a journalist. So mine is very like assignment based. So yeah, same issue. Always having to look for work. I think it puts you in somewhat of a scarcity mindset where you're always having to. So even when like sometimes you end up getting work, alhamdulillah, you end up thinking, oh, I can't say no to more work, and sometimes you can end up like burning yourself out in those moments because you're like, oh, sometimes I don't get work, so I have to say yes to everything that comes my way, which is not the healthiest approach.
Yeah, that too. And also, I feel like in the field of freelancing, if you want to build an agency and outsource work, then it's really great for you and you can actually make a lot of money. But there's a cap to how much you can earn as a solo freelancer.
Yeah.
Unless you go really deep into your craft and really become the best at what you do. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think in journalism, with my experience, like there's a lot of people who I would consider the best, people who've been working for so long that have now been laid off and have become freelancers. And just with the way the media landscape is going, there's more freelancers than there are assignments. A lot of the editors that I used to work with have quit. Just in the last year alone, so many editors were like, oh, we're leaving this publication, or we've been laid off, or the publication is just closing entirely because they don't have money. So obviously things are looking a little bit bleak right now. So even that best thing no longer feels very hopeful, even though it did when I started 4 years ago. So that's just a place to be in, I think, freelancing wise. But I think one of the things that I'm looking for personally is to diversify my skill set more. So obviously Echoes Media is part of that, and looking at more multimedia stuff as well.
Makes sense, yeah, because we used to read newspapers once upon a time, and now for news we scroll TikTok.
Yeah.
Like that's the trend you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Speaking of scrolling, one of your reels that really stood out to me was when you said you stopped asking, am I looking good, and started asking, am I having fun? That mindset is so difficult to learn in this day and age, but why do you think it's so important?
Okay, it's crazy. But we women are under insane amount of pressure right now in the 21st century than I think we ever were in history because of media. I think, obviously, I could be wrong. But because of social media, we are constantly surrounded by, it's an overused word, we're sick of hearing it, unrealistic beauty standards. But it's so true. I remember when I was like 13 or 14 years old, and that was the time when I started becoming aware that, okay, I'm a girl, I should look attractive. I would literally Google Anne Hathaway in a bikini. I would open her picture on my laptop. I would stand in front of her and I would look at my body, and I used to be like, why isn't my stomach flat like hers? Which is crazy if you think about it now. And the thing is that it's not just like they say, okay, don't be insecure, don't follow these celebrities. But the thing is that it's not just about, okay, you unfollow these celebrities and you should have self-love. Our beauty standards have changed. Like it does things to your brain. You're so used to seeing faces a certain way that like your standard of beauty for yourself and for other people, it changes. Like, I'm sure there's someone who can say this in a more scientific way than I can, but it changes your perceptions. It changes, like, it has the power to change an entire society's perceptions of what faces and bodies should look like. And obviously women suffer from this much more than men. And when I was in Egypt, so in Pakistan, okay, this is gonna sound so funny, but I have to say it. In Pakistan, like, okay, I'm okay. Like, I'm not that bad, you know. I don't have acne. I'm not that fat. I have generally, I think, an okay face, and I'm skinny and I look good with makeup. And in Pakistan, like, I had a lot of confidence. And then when I went to Egypt, and I was like living in a very multicultural environment, because there were interns from all over the world, and particularly from like a lot of Arab countries, especially Tunisia. And then I started comparing myself to all of them, and honestly, like, they were so beautiful, the girls, mashallah, mashallah. And I really loved them. They're amazing people. But like, I started like falling into that trap of, and coming from Pakistan, I hadn't taken a lot of clothes. Even I hadn't taken any jewelry, and not that much makeup either, because I would travel in the mountains here, and nobody, like, in the mountains you don't really dress up, right? And over there the vibe was completely different. You're going to beaches, you're going to cruises, you're going to yachts, you're going out at night, fancy restaurants, and I wasn't dressed up. And I started falling into that trap, and then at that point I was like a message to myself as well as message to other girls, like, focus on living the experience, focus on having fun. It doesn't matter who finds you attractive, who doesn't. Like, it should not matter to you. So yeah, that was the story behind that reel.
Love that. I think it's so important. Personally, it's something that I try to advocate for as well in, my daily life, and just talking to people, that pretty is not the payment we owe the world for existing. Like, we can just be so much more than that, and having fun and fulfilling what we want, and making sure that we're on the right values, or that we are fulfilling our purpose, is all part of that.
True. And like, as women, we end up spending so much on all of these things, which could be spent on so much more important things, developing our inner selves, helping other people, in charity, and you're spending like 10,000 rupees on one baking powder. It's crazy. And even in like the digital world, pretty sells. Like, it's true. Like, even speaking to myself, if I'm scrolling and there's someone who's really attractive, I will stop and I will watch that. So I feel that pressure a lot to look pretty online. And I wanted to be like Eva Zubek, quit makeup cold turkey, but that's just like too difficult, way too difficult.
It is.
So yeah, it's too difficult. Yeah, I think, yeah, so even if you like show yourself a bit ugly on social media, I think you're playing your part in breaking those beauty standards. So even in that reel, I don't think I had like the best facial expressions or the best angles. So I tried to do that.
But it was you, right? And I think that's what's so important. So just to wrap things off, speaking of your inner self, what color do you think your inner self is, and why?
Colors, I would think, actually I have a brand palette for my Instagram page, Adventures with Hamnah. So actually those are the first ones that come into my mind. It's like earthy things, like greens, dark green especially, browns, like deep yellow, mustard, or purple, like very earthy colors, because I see myself living in nature, being a bit feral and wild.
I love that. I think those are great colors to be, and I can definitely see you as those colors as well. And I think this is a great place to end and leave our listeners with something more to think about and something more to ponder over. And for anyone who's interested in Hamnah's work and you haven't had a chance to see it already, we'll be putting her links down in the episode description, so you can always link up with her, or just be inspired by her content to do some of your own traveling, which I think all of us would really encourage. And hopefully all of us get a chance to travel the way you are traveling as well, and learn the way you are learning. So Hamnah, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. Actually, a lot of your questions made me think about these things as well. Yeah, and I hope those people watching, you're inspired by something. And yeah, that's it.